The Golden Hour Birth Podcast, a podcast about real birth stories and creating connections through our shared experiences.
Childbirth isn't just about the child. It's about the person who gave birth, their lives, their wisdom, and their empowerment.
We're Liz
and Natalie,
the Golden Hour Birth Podcast, and we're here to laugh with you,
cry with you,
and hold space for you.
Hi y'all, it's Courtney at Birth Order, and I am excited tonight to be talking with Natalie Hackett from the Golden Hour Birth Podcast. As soon as I see her, then we will start. She and her sister-in-law have a podcast based here in St. Louis, but they talk to people nationally. Oh, here she is. Hold on just a moment. Here she is.
Hi.
Hi, how are you tonight?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Good.
I was just starting your introduction. So.
I heard it a little bit. Thank you. This is so crazy. I'm on an Instagram Live. What?
I know it. Every time I do it too, I'm waiting for like an update to have happened that like it's not going to work and I'm not going to know what I'm supposed to be doing. Like it's always a bit of a trust fall over here on Instagram Live.
And here we go.
Well, I'm happy you were able to make it, and also doing it at 8 p.m. on as we're both moms. Like I know bedtime was a little more stressful tonight because I was like, I gotta go.
Yep. Yeah, my husband's still laying on my son's floor, just like he started this thing where totally avoid it. So we're there. We're in the midst of it.
Fun.
Yeah.
Fun. Yeah, I just had to promise that I'd come back in when this is over.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really hoping he's asleep. Like I'm hopeful that some nights he's me and he'll hang in there. But oh well. They're on their own. They're in their bedroom.
Mom's gotta do what mom's gotta do.
Well, cool. So anyway, I was introducing you a little bit, mentioning your podcast, but why don't you take it from here? Tell us a little bit about who you are and, what your podcast is.
Yeah. So I'm Natalie. I'm born and raised in St. Louis. I still live here. I live in South City with my husband and two babies. I have a 2-year-old son and a 5-month-old daughter. And then, my sister-in-law Liz has a boy and a girl as well. So our husbands are brothers. So we have just grown really close over the years. I'm so grateful to do this alongside her. So back in 2018, she announced to our family that she was pregnant. My reaction, I literally screamed bloody murder, like, oh my God. I won't do it on here because nobody needs to rehear that. But we just pretty much bonded over our love for birth and kind of just all things surrounding it. She really opened up about her postpartum experience with her first as time went on. And then her second and my first are 4 months apart. And so when I was newly postpartum, she opened up to me and I was just like, oh my God, that's exactly what I'm feeling. And then from there, we pretty much just both had this creative juice flowing, and we just literally had some wine one night out at Robust Wine Bar and literally just put this whole thing together because when we were both pregnant, we found a sense of calming going into birth, and because listening to podcasts and just knowing you're not alone, and here's some things that can happen, but each birth story is uniquely their own. As you know, we had yours on, and your wonderful birth and then crazy postpartum.
I know, it's so funny. After that, it was so fun. I loved coming over. I was so honored to be asked to do it. And then I had a great time with the two of you. You have a great energy about you and also a super cool little studio that was felt fun to sit in. But immediately I was like, that was fun, and I think I was horrible, and I just for the whole time ever since then, it was so many times where I had to talk myself out of emailing you guys to be like, it's okay if it's bad, don't feel like you have to publish it. But I was like, I'm not going to do that to them. It's fine. And then I heard it, and I was even the day it went live, I was talking to my boss, and I was like, I don't think I can listen. I think it's going to be really bad. And she was like, well, I won't listen. You listen and tell me, I don't want you to listen if you think it's bad. I'm like, okay. I listened to 15 minutes and I immediately texted her. I was like, it's okay. I feel a lot better. Like, it's good. And then I loved it. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I went on a journey with you guys that you didn't even know about. But it was like at the end, it felt really good. Like I was so happy that we did have that talk and that I did put it out there. And that like what I felt like was rambling was kind of just like how moms talk and think, and like it's totally like it's easy to get self-conscious about it. And then when I heard it as if I was hearing someone else, and it was like, oh, this is a story that I can listen to. Like it made the whole thing even better. Mine was long. I didn't realize. I looked at the lengths of everyone else's and I was like, oh man, I'm a talker.
We almost cut it into 2, but you made the cut.
Oh, okay. Oh, good. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was fun.
Oh, we were so happy to have you on. It is weird listening to yourself back. Like the first time I was just like, what is this? This is how I sound. And then now I'm totally used to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So in you guys putting this together and forming the podcast, how did you decide that it was going to be, so solely focused on birth stories, or maybe, maybe that's just where it's starting and it will change, but what made you really focus in on this piece?
Yeah. I mean, like the podcast part of it is like we were both so intrinsically connected to another birth podcast, and we just like found like such calming nature around like what like the unknown variables of birth. And so like when we would listen to other people's podcasts and other people's stories, we both just like said that it just like calmed us down a lot. So from there we knew that we like definitely wanted to get stories out there. I think like for both of us, like sharing our stories with other people just felt this like wave of like, this is what happened to me and I feel okay with it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's like really helped us like continue on really focusing on birth. But then of course, like birth creates like a cycle and a domino effect of like postpartum. Obviously you have to be pregnant to get to birth. So kind of going like in that trajectory and like just really focusing under that umbrella. One of our first guests we had on back in 2022 was actually one of my best friends. And we recorded the night of her son's first birthday, and she woke up the next day and she's like, I like felt okay about my son's birth, but talking to you guys and telling that story last night, actually, I just woke up like feeling so grateful, feeling like so much better about the entire experience. And like having that text was an absolute, I don't even know, like calmness. And I was like, we are doing the right thing. We're getting the birth stories out there and we're letting these women make sense of what happened. Make sense of things that like they really are out of their control. And
yeah. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Oh, guess what? I'm going to talk.
Yeah.
I remember when I had my son, I was like, people almost didn't want to ask me because they were like, you're sick of talking about this. And I was like, never. And even now, 4 years later, when I meet someone who's pregnant, I almost feel bad because I'm just like, I'm happy you're pregnant. Let me tell you everything that happened to me. Like, I'm not very good at like listening to their experience. I'm like, let me just tell you what happened. And then, you can pass that along.
There's no filter. I know. I remember like friends coming over and I would just be like, okay, like, so are we ready? Are you like, you guys ready to hear it? I do have like some girlfriends that are like very private and respect to a T. I won't like pry or anything, but at the same time, I'm like, come on, like just a little bit.
And something that I think is a little different about what you guys are doing, I guess I even said like, why is it birth stories? Because in my mind, that's still like, that's what you're doing, but you are telling the full cycle of like the beginnings of trying to get pregnant, getting pregnant, all the way through postpartum. And it is nice to sit down and tell that story in kind of a linear way instead of jumping into like the fun parts that are easy to talk about. Yeah. And it's good to hear people do that as well.
Yeah. I mean, and postpartum, like before becoming a mom, you're just like, yeah, like all of the ups and downs, but like, whoa.
Yeah. It's great.
Yeah,
I do. And I really do believe like postpartum is forever. Like it's just
forever.
like, everything's wrong a little bit.
A little. Yeah.
Well, how many episodes have you guys done now?
Oh my gosh, we're on 57.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how long have you been doing it?
We just hit a year on May 8th. We like release on Mother's Day of 2022. So it's our little baby. It's like our little toddler.
Hit the ground running. Like you didn't have it. You were like, we're all in.
I know. Like at first we were
That's great.
Like every other week.
I'm sorry, you're cutting out. You said you do it every other week?
Oh, like at first, yeah, we were like thinking about releasing every other week, and then we just went for it.
Oh, yeah. I like it. It is nice to have that consistency. Like, once you get like into listening to podcasts, I feel like it becomes like a part of your like weekly ritual. And it really like, throws me off when something that I'm listening to that I'm used to at a certain time, like isn't there. And bi-weekly podcasts, I'm always just forgetting about them. Like, it's pretty amazing how that gap week will just be like, oh, I've moved on.
Oh,
I'm not very good at organizing how I listen to podcasts. So every time I look at my app, I'm like, there's more that I listen to, but I can't remember them. Yeah. So I just want to listen to the 5 that are up top. But, what do you think the biggest thing you've learned from having so many of these conversations over the past year?
Yeah. I just, I think if anything, like creating this community of people has been like such a big learning experience, and just like always knowing like you're not alone, even though every birth story is uniquely their own. There are so many people out there that have experienced maybe like a little similar thing. Like we had 2 people reach out from another mom's postpartum experience of like breastfeeding and being like, this is the exact same thing that happened to me, and like things like that. And it's just like such a comforting thing, because in this world of a trillion people, like just knowing something someone out there has a little bit of a story like yours, there's just a sense of like, okay, we're not alone. So that's been such a great learning thing.
What is the dynamic of you and Liz doing this? Like, do you each what are each of your roles in this? How do you, I guess what I'm curious about is because it's so hard to find like partners and pairs and things. Like, how did you, since your spouses were related, like they obviously had a connection, but usually that's like you two would be very different. Like, how did you find your own partnership in that? And like, how does that dynamic work?
Yeah. I mean, it first started for sure of being, like we both traveled internationally. Then we both found out we're birth nerds. There's also like a big age gap between her and I, which like, I'm not going to say her age, but I'm like, sometimes I look back and I'm like, we connected on like such a deep level very quickly. And it's really just grown from there. From being birth nerds, that really just took off. I could not do this with anyone but her. Like, I am so grateful for her because she's such a business boss woman queen. And so very much like I'll give it to her. Like she's taken this thing to a whole new level. So yeah, she, like we have this studio in her basement, and then she pretty much records everything on her computer, and then she edits them. I do a lot of like reaching out to people, getting them scheduled with us. So like a lot of like the community part outreach, and then like getting like some collaborations going, and then she does those like little sparkle reels, which are amazing.
They're so cute.
And and then we just like have a lot of good things coming too. She's amazing.
I'm super impressed at how much you guys are able to accomplish. Like, just from my experience as a guest, like the way you reached out to me and then the way I scheduled, like it was all like very professional, and like it just seamlessly kind of rolled into the next thing. And then even like when it came out, like the way you launched the podcast, and then a few days later the reel coming out, like it just feels like a really nice, thoughtful rollout, I guess, of each one.
Yeah.
Which is nice because that's kind of the whole environment. Even your colors are cozy. You got that neon light in your studios. Everything's just a little. I got there and I think it was his husband, had a margarita for all of us, and like it was just everything's very comfortable and very nice. And
I love it. Can you 5-star review? I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I will, and I will do it anonymously, so it's not like she was there, like she's cheating.
Thank you.
So thinking about guests, I saw that a couple weeks ago, you guys published a two-parter with your husband.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't gone back and looked at the guests of everyone. Is he the first husband that you had on in general?
Yeah.
And how was that for you? I haven't listened to it yet. I was hoping to get to it today and I didn't. But how was that for you, listening to like him tell his experience in this space that's kind of your space? Because sometimes I get cranky when my partner tells my birth story, even if it's like he was there. I'm like, get out of here.
Were you there? Were you?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was such like a cathartic experience, I think, for the both of us. I think a lot of times the birth is so focused on the mother, and we forget about the father. Like there was a lot of stuff that happened in our postpartum experience with our first one that I think I was just like, well, it didn't matter. Like you weren't postpartum. But like in reality, it did matter. And I think it was such a good time for him to come on, because like if there are partners out there that listen, I think it just like helps them understand and like better support their partner.
Mm-hmm.
And he is just like such an emotionally aware human, and I value like his experience of our birth so much, and like just how he, I don't know, like how he puts everything together was just like really special. And so for us, it was like both a very cathartic experience, and kind of just like getting through like the little stuff that maybe we haven't worked through yet from the first time. And then the second time, the second time he was like, do you even like me? And I'm like, I'm just struggling. And so like, yeah, just like having that time, it felt like it was a good chapter of like moving on, and like having third party of Liz asking like those questions that we haven't really thought about yet, I think was a really good experience too.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember when we were pregnant, like I was on all of the apps and I was tracking everything with me and my body and my baby.
Yes.
And I remember talking a lot to my partner about how he really wished that there was something like that for him.
Yeah.
Like if there's a version of this where he's like, I don't need to know what side, like I don't need everything, but like having like, this is where she is this week, so maybe she's going to be a little sensitive, maybe do something, you know, like these little motivating things to like help him understand, and also like get the knowledge slowly throughout, because I was becoming an expert on baby, and he wasn't, because he didn't have that kind of, he had a couple of books that I wanted him to read, and that was it. Like it was like studying for a test instead of but yeah, I feel like it is the partners are left out, and even in these birth stories, I listen to birth podcasts also, like all of that stuff, you don't really get that perspective very much, and so I'm really looking forward to listening to it. He got a two-parter.
Yeah, he did. We had to end it on like a little cliffhanger.
Oh, good. Then I'm happy I waited so I can go immediately into the next one. Well, cool. Is there anything else that you want to, is there anything you want to promote, anything you want to tease, or just sort of tell people where they can find you in the podcast?
Yeah, we have a lot of exciting things coming. I won't really share anything yet, but we're working on a lot. So you can find me at Nat_Golden Hour, and then you can find Liz at Liz_Golden_Hour. We changed it up a little bit because Instagram hates us. You can find us on Facebook, the Golden Hour Birth Podcast. And then we also have the Golden Hour Birth Circle that we've started. So a lot of women just joining in, and, you know, we're asking questions. We're just trying to build a better community and have people like feel comfortable asking those questions. So yeah, you can find us there, and then listen to.
Is the Birth Circle a Facebook group, or is that?
Facebook group.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
And then find us on anywhere you listen to your podcast and our website.
You guys are everywhere. Yeah. You have a pretty website too.
Thank you. Thanks. Yeah. Liz again. Like, oh my God. Boss woman. Amazing.
How does she do it?
I know.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Natalie. I really appreciate it. I hope that kid's asleep.
Yeah, I know. I hear them both now. So
just pretend you're still on the phone.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Good night. Bye.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Golden Hour Birth Podcast. We hope you've enjoyed our discussion and found it insightful and beneficial. Remember, the Golden Hour Birth Podcast is made possible by the support of listeners like you. If you appreciate the content we bring you each week, consider leaving us a review on your favorite podcast platform or sharing the show with your friends and family. Your support helps us reach more people and continue creating valuable episodes. If you have any questions, suggestions, or topics you'd like us to cover in future episodes, we'd love to hear from you. You can reach us on our website, www.goldenhourbirthpodcast, or connect with us on social media. We value your feedback and want to make sure that we're delivering the content you want to hear. Before we sign off, we'd like to express our gratitude to our incredible guests who joined us today. We are honored that they trust us enough to be so open and vulnerable. We're grateful for their time and willingness to share their stories with us. If you're interested in taking the conversation further with us, join us on our Facebook group, the Golden Hour Birth Circle. We'll be back next week with another exciting episode, so be sure to tune in. Until then, stay golden and remember to take care of yourself. We'll catch you on the next episode of the Golden Hour Birth Podcast. Bye!